We are live.
Excellent. Hope everyone can hear me. It is 4 o'clock, and now is the time set for the scheduled board meeting for the Arizona State Schools for the Deaf and the Blind. I will have the call to order, agenda item 1.01. Before we do that, thank you for Media Technologies again for setting this up via Zoom. I think the ground rules will be similar to our last call that we had via Zoom. Again, if you, when you're speaking, you can turn on your video and I can recognize you. When you're finished, you can turn off your video. When we hold votes on certain items, you can vote via video and hold up a thumbs up or otherwise indicate that you're voting yes. If you're voting no, you can otherwise indicate it on the video and I'll take a tally and we'll record the records that way. So item 1.01, we need the roll call. I believe that Suke is not here today. So I will do the roll call. Mike Gordon.
I'm here.
Dean Howard.
Present.
Suke Kneifel is not present. Linda Bove. I don't believe she's present. Mike Manley.
Present.
Okay. Lynn Davidson.
Present.
Mark Sims. Mark, I believe, may be a little bit late. He's held up at his practice for a bit. Shelley Herbold.
Present.
She is present. And that is the list. So we have quorum now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we are at 6. So we are good to go. Item 1.02, call to the public. Sorry? Okay. Item 1.02, call to the public. Call to the public on agendized items. For this, we had solicited email comments last week when we posted the agenda. We have an email address set up, just receive public comments, and we had a cutoff time to do that. We received one public comment that was received into that email box. I will read it. I think, again, because Suke is not here, I will read it. This is from Danny Lawrence, and I will begin reading it now. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. In the AT report presented tonight, 1.03, there is specific mention that AT for VI students has not been included or purchased in the plans for the upcoming school year. However, in the Assistant Superintendent Report 1.05, it sounds like through the CARES Act monies were given to ASDB to buy those technologies, but for some reason, blind and visually impaired students were once again overlooked. Please understand from someone who receives services from a regional cooperative that school districts are relying on ASDB to purchase and distribute those technologies for students served under IEPs. Under their IGA agreements, those assurances are spelled out in contractual language. The board should be asking questions about how cooperatives were prepared and supplemented for the coming year. This again is a huge example of equitable delivery of ASDB services, both in terms of what cooperative students have access to versus campus students, but more importantly shows the disparity of delivery from blind students versus their deaf counterparts. As witnessed continuously on the ASDB Facebook page, the visual impairment community is consistently left out from not having visual descriptions given for posts as opposed for those directed at the deaf community, a direct violation of the ADA. This summer, it was painful as a parent to a visually impaired child to see the promotion of Camp Leap virtually, while absolutely no attention, not a single promotion was given to the Bell Camp for visually impaired or the National Federation for the Blind convention that just occurred virtually. The blind community is clearly a complete afterthought for this organization. As COVID struck this last school year, Braille reading materials were unobtainable to children in regional cooperatives, and staff members were specifically instructed not to provide it. Was this also the case for the deaf community? Were they denied the right to literacy during a pandemic? It's time for ASDB to do some researching, because the lackluster nothing provided to the blind and visually impaired community actually does more harm than good. Why not cut this population loop and let them determine a new path that helps educate children rather than stifle them for the needs of the deaf community? There are no statewide services being delivered here, either in terms of rural versus urban or in terms of disability, blind versus the deaf community. However, monies received from both the state and federal governments are directed to be used according to those guidelines. Not doing so is arguably fraud, and in the coming school year, I intend to expose how ASDB's operations and expenditures lack fiduciary responsibility. Also, please inquire about training for itinerant staff and COVID prevention. It's concerning that 68% of ASDB teaching staff is in the high risk range for COVID. Protecting them and students should be the top priority of this organization, especially considering the sensory impairment teacher shortage. Thank you. As I mentioned, that was the only public comment that was received. So to that end, we will move on to agenda item 1.03, information item executive team reports. Those reports were posted on board docs. At this time, is there any board member that would like to ask a specific question regarding those reports? And as a reminder, those reports were from Human Resources, Information Technology, and Operations. I see Superintendent Reichman raising her hand, so you have the floor. Annette,
Okay. I just wanted to add an introduction to Albert Duff. Albert is our new Director of Operations. And this is his first report to the board. He was a new, and that was just added for your review.
Okay. Okay, I don't see any board members with particular questions about those reports. So we can move on to, go ahead. Is there someone there? No? Okay, so we can move on to 1.04, information item, back to school video. That is Assistant Superintendent Rex. Assistant Superintendent Rex, you will now have the floor.
Thank you, President Nigro and board members. What you are about to experience is a video that has been prepared to be shared with our students, parents, and staff to help them develop an understanding of our schools as they will now look when staff and students can safely return to campus. Over the past 4 weeks, there have been many versions of this video, and they have developed and been redeveloped as we get more information. We took our lead in developing this video from support from the Arizona Department of Education, the Center for Disease Control. We used best practices from risk management, and we as a governmental agency, ASDB also takes its direction from the governor. So we are looking forward. We're looking forward to fall of 2020. And ASDB and PDSD campuses are still committed to providing each child what they're going to need to be successful. I had the opportunity to view this video, and I kind of took the parent lens when I watched the video. If I were a parent with a student that would be attending school, what would I want to know to make sure my child was being safe? What would I want to know to feel confident and know that we have done our due diligence in supporting our staff and our students? So let's take a few minutes and enjoy a very heartfelt and a video that I hope that will help us move into the fall of 2020.
Hi, it's me, Brianna, from the ASDB Media team. School will be starting soon. Are you excited? We're so happy you're coming back. Some things have changed, like getting on the bus or how we do lunches. Today, I have your 2 favorite principals, so sit back and enjoy. ASDB Media presents the first day of back to school.
Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Creasy, and I'm standing in the bus bay on the Tucson campus. For many of you, this will be your first stop on your first day of school. But before you even get on the bus, we're going to take your temperature to make sure you're healthy. You don't have to put the thermometer under your tongue. In fact, it doesn't even need to touch you. I'm going to take Julie's temperature right now, and I'm going to point the thermometer at her forehead and press a button. For my blind and visually impaired friends, you may even hear the beep. Now I know that Julie is healthy and she can get on the bus. Courtney, what are you doing at PDSD?
Mrs. Creasy, you are right. Here at PDSD, we are doing the exact same thing. The bus staff members will check your temperature, and as long as that is fine, you will get right on the bus. One additional thing I want to mention is that there will only be 1 student per seat. So that means I would be all by myself. I would go over near the window and I would sit down, and there would be nobody sitting right next to me. It would just be me. In the morning for breakfast, that will look different as well. Students will be grouped in order to eat at different locations all across the campus. If you're unsure where to go, don't worry. Staff will be around to help you and tell you where to go and direct you into the right place. When you're lining up, it's really important to remember to honor social distancing and not be too close to other people in line. Also, when you're out and about all around campus, it doesn't matter if you're inside or outside, it's really important to remember to always stay to the right. So as you're walking by people, you're going the opposite direction.
And just like at PDSD, you will see arrows on the floor here in Tucson when you walk to your classroom. We're going to use stay to the right here too. When you walk into a classroom, you're going to notice it's a little different this year. The desks are further apart. Right now I'm standing in a classroom in high school, and the desks are 6 feet apart. For my blind and visually impaired friends, how far is 6 feet? And how can you know when someone is 6 feet away from you? First, you'll want to practice measuring what 6 feet is at home. One tool most of us have is a broom or a mop. Use a broom or a mop and extend it in front of you, straight out, standing inside or outside. Have a family member stand at the other end of the broom and talk to you. Start getting used to what 6 feet away sounds like and practice walking towards someone who is talking and stopping when you feel like you're 6 feet away. You can ask your family member to tell you if you were 6 feet away when you stopped or if you were closer. Of course, people aren't always talking when we run into them. For that reason, it'll be really important for you to always have your cane with you in and out of class. That way you can find a person's feet before getting too close.
Yep, that is right. We are doing the same thing here at PDSD. The student desks and chairs will be separate. You will notice how far apart they are, and there's plenty of space here in between. There's nothing else in between the student desks and the chairs. They will sit like that during class. When class is finished and I'm leaving the classroom, we need to remember to stay to the right as we are walking down the hallway. Good job. Students will still go to different specials classes. You will notice that each of the classrooms, the furniture, such as the chairs and the tables, have been changed. For example, in this room, you will notice that there's only one student sitting at this computer table. All of the students will be spaced out and separated. In the past, there were many classrooms that had a variety of supplies that the students could share, and they were available to anyone. But from this point forward, we will have to do that differently. Each individual student will have a box. Each student will keep their own supplies within that box. We won't be able to share with friends or anyone else in the classroom. This is important because we need to make sure to keep everything clean.
And here, in the art room, the team will be using an FDA disinfectant, but we still have to be careful about not touching everything. For my blind and visually impaired friends, your world involves touch, and we want to make sure that you're safe. So we're going to make sure we have someone cleaning down all of these surfaces that you touch throughout the day. Just like here in the computer lab with your keyboard and mice, we want to make sure that you are safe. Now is a good time to mention that we're going to have signs all over campus to help everyone. There will be some Braille on the signs, but for my blind and visually impaired friends, we're going to provide you with Braille copies ahead of time.
Where are they? They're everywhere.
And here.
And here. And also here. Now I want to show you a quick glimpse at the different posters that you will see posted around the campus. Now that you're able to see them, you will become familiar with them, and it will be easy to spot the information that is around the campus. There are different posters that you will see. The posters are meant to help you and remind you to stay safe and stay healthy.
Posters will be in English, Spanish, and Braille.
Hey Brianna, do you know what time it is? It's probably the most important time of the day.
The most important part of the day? Wait, is it...
Brianna, you are right. Now it's recess time. We will still be able to have recess outside. However, it won't be with all of the classrooms being able to play and interact with each other. Instead, each class will have a set scheduled time to make sure everyone can take turns and have the opportunity to go outside and play. When each class is done, the teacher will help keep everything clean by using a big gallon sprayer with a sanitizing solution on the equipment. So when they're done doing that, it will be ready for the next class to go outside and play. Okay, I am really looking forward to seeing you run around and be able to play outside. During the day, each teacher will set up a specific time and have a schedule of all of us taking turns to wash our hands. It's really important that we all wash our hands well to keep everything clean. Now it's my turn to wash my hands. All clean, and I'm ready to go. So, Brianna, what's your second most favorite part of the day?
Oh, I know this one. It's my favorite. Lunchtime!
That's right. Lunch will be a little different too. Everyone will have their own table to sit at, or you'll eat in your classroom depending on your grade level. Behind me is one of our booths. You can sit on one side, but the other side is taped off. When you're done with lunch, you're going to wash your hands before you go back to your classroom. We have to stay clean. First, you're going to wet your hands. Then, you're going to add the soap, and then rinse really good for about 20 seconds, making sure that you're covering all areas of your hands so they're nice and clean. Rinse off the soap, turn off the water, and then dry your hands with a paper towel. Nice and clean.
The water fountains will be different this year as well. We are requiring all individuals to have their own water bottle. Something like this. That way you can fill it up with water and keep it with you all day and drink as you need to, okay?
I have a question. What about masks?
That's a great question. You probably see your friends and staff members wearing different types of face coverings. The first one is a cloth face mask, and it's reusable, so I can wash it each day. I'm going to put it on my face right now. It covers my nose and my mouth, and for my blind and visually impaired friends, my voice probably sounds a little bit different. There's also disposable face coverings. They look just like a cloth face covering, and they cover your mouth and your nose. But when you're done with it, you throw it in the trash. Julie is also wearing a face covering. Hers has a clear panel so that you can see her nose and her mouth. But I can tell you when Julie talks, her voice sounds a little bit different. You may also see some people wearing a face shield. This goes on the top of their head and has a clear panel so that you can see their entire face. But again, their voice is going to sound different.
Here at PDSD, we don't have dorms, but in Tucson, they do have dorms. So I'm curious, Mrs. Creasy, what are you going to do in the dorms for students that live there?
We made some changes in the dorm over the summer. We got rid of all the couches, and now you'll have your own individual chair or beanbag. We'll have a team of cleaners that will make sure the common area and all surfaces in the dorm are kept clean throughout the day. The other big change for the dorms is that everyone will have their own room.
Once school is done for the day, normally students just head to the bus, but this year we won't be able to do that. Instead, each class will need to line up, keeping social distance, and follow their teacher. They will provide instructions to walk in a line and then individually walk to your bus when it's time for your class to go. We won't be able to mix and mingle in the loading zone.
Now Julie and I are on a school bus. You won't be able to sit with your friends, only one person to a seat. We know it's going to be tough, but Courtney and I know you can do it. Julie and I are standing in front of the ASDB sign beside the administration building. Thank you everyone for watching. And remember, if you have questions, you can always ask.
Yep, that is right. All of the staff here are here to help. Brianna, do you remember all of the list of rules?
Let me think. Let's see. First, stay to the right. Second, wash your hands. Third, use your water bottle. Fourth, wear your mask. I think I got it. Do you remember everything? It's cool if you don't. On the first day, we will all practice together. If you forget, it's all right. We will send a packet home to answer questions your family might have about PE or sports programs. We can't wait to see you. Stay safe and protect your family. Remember, be a superhero. Bye!
I believe those were some Oscar-worthy performances, and I look forward to getting feedback from our staff as they see all the hard work and effort and thought that has gone into providing a safer environment for our students.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Rex. That was a great video. And I know we can, well, first, I guess we're also going to be going into your report, but do any of the board members have any questions about the video or the rules themselves? I see Superintendent Wright been turned on her video. Would you like to make any comments now, or?
Just wanted to thank the two principals and the digital media team for putting together this great video. We plan to show it to parents, to students, to staff. We will be sending it out on social media, but we wanted to show it to you, the board, first.
Thank you. Are there any other board members that would like to comment on the video itself before we move on? Okay, seeing none, we can move on to 1.05, information item, Assistant Superintendent Report. Dr. Rex, we've seen your report online. If you can now give us your oral report.
Absolutely. Thank you, President Nigro. You've had time to look at our report that we submit, but I'd also like to highlight a few things. Our programs have been so busy. I just try to pull a couple snippets from each group, but let's start with our birth to 3 family. Birth to 3 never stopped chugging along. They have been serving families statewide all along. Now, they had to be innovative and had to find unique ways to offer their families support, but they have things pretty well figured out, and they are working on how they will be moving forward to offer an in-person option with preventative measures. Of course, we're all waiting for that order of when we will be allowed to be in person, but the birth to 3 teachers are rocking it with their supervising teachers, and they have a plan, it's in place, and they are continuing with their remote instruction. I just wanted to make an announcement that through private donations and the U.S. Health Resources and Services Administration grant through the EAR Foundation, we were able to provide families with technology that was necessary to access their educational opportunities online last spring. We also will continue to provide those families in the birth to 3 preschool and preschool programs with technology throughout the summer. The EAR Foundation is a very committed partner, and they are really wanting to be a strong partnership in supporting our ASDB families through the COVID-19 pandemic. Also in the early learning program, we have families, about 12 families that are residing in the Navajo and Hopi Nations in northeastern Arizona area. These families, many of them were hit hard with the onset of COVID-19. They were impacted through a loss of income, supplies to keep their families able to be healthy and clean, and the shortages of essential household items were a factor. And through a $5,000 award bestowed by the Communication Service for the Deaf CDS Unites grant, the ELP staff was able to help these family members through their process and the recovery. I'm also happy to announce that our early learning program has been asked to partner on a deaf-blind pro-tactile sign language project. And I believe Dr. Kendra Benedict will have more information as that becomes available to share with the board, but that's very exciting. They just found out that we've been asked to do this project. Now jumping into our preschools. Our preschools are preparing for fall as well. Michelle Ahern and Michael Olivier have been developing with support a variety of learning opportunities. And they are definitely securing the numbers of what students we will be having and the staffing they will need to provide in person with preventative measures, as well as remote opportunities. As you could see from our video, the rooms have changed, the spacing has changed, the need to have certain groups in certain places and the supervision. Those issues are unique challenges, but we are up for them and we are preparing for them. Our schools, as you saw, have transitioned from the task that was given to them this past spring of providing educational opportunities to now providing instruction. Teachers are returning and they will be preparing for remote instruction until we can open our schools safely. The schools have been sharing information with their staff on a weekly update basis. The principals have been surveying parents as they set this course for reopening. Staff has been working to make the dorms and the classrooms safe. And the many changes and challenges have been well thought out and designed and sometimes redesigned. Both schools have developed a distance learning plan that ADE had provided a template for so we can open. They have a plan A, in-person instruction, a plan B, online instruction. And they are developing their protocols. And now we have our statewide itinerant services where you have directors and now we have supervising teachers and lead interpreters stepping up to make sure that we have all the information we need to send our staff in so they can be safe. Jay Johnson and his team have been gathering reopening plans from the various districts that we serve. They are developing protocols for redistributing equipment for our students. They are developing additional training to support our staff for a remote start, but also a safe start. They are in the process of aligning consistent data collection tools. And they will be, I just wanted to announce that the Region 1, which is the combination of Southwest Region, North Central Region, and Eastern Highlands, as they've been renamed Region 1, they will be kicking off their beginning of year staff meeting soon. Some of the highlights from the co-ops include this summer, we partnered and we're working with VR, Vocational Rehab, to support our transition planning and development. Jay Johnson and his team have met and communicated with over 40 special education directors, some of them member districts and some not member districts, to discuss how ASDB is providing services virtually and in a remote setting. All of the co-ops have worked with the 134 partnering districts to help align calendars and get their reopening plans. And let me tell you, that is like corralling cats because every district is doing something a little bit different. And kudos to the itinerant team for really trying to pin down and make sure their staff can serve students safely. I think I have one more thing. Co-op directors are finalizing any and all agreements. We have a goal, we set a goal for ourselves to have at least all of our agreements almost ready to be signed and or signed by August 3rd. And I believe the last thing I wanted to share was to help support our staff in the itinerant world. The directors have set up resources and self-care. It's a page where staff can go and get examples of how to practice their own self-care, as well as when they're working with their students to help their students, because this is a very strange time and our students are going to need a lot of additional support as well. And that concludes the oral part of my report.
Thank you very much for that. I'll now take some questions from board members. I see several hands up. It looks like Shelley was the first hand to go up. So Shelley, if you can begin.
Hello, everyone. This is Shelley Horbold. Thank you so much for your report, Dr. Rex. I was watching the governor recently and his report and his comments. And they are saying now we're expecting, August 18th for all students to be back in school as of now. Currently, I guess things could change. There may need to be a backup plan, but that seems to still be in place. If the family feels it's still not safe and they would like to keep their child at home, do they have other options for that, for virtual learning if need be?
We have a plan A, which is having our students on campus, because we are schools that kids were specifically through IEPs placed on our campuses. We have a plan for remote delivery of instruction, but where we will run into trouble is the capacity to support both. And so the principals are working on delivering the instructions in the school as a first priority, but we don't have necessarily a plan in place to offer both at this point in time. We could do remote with fidelity. We can do in person with fidelity, but we're still seeking to understand our capacity to do both, honestly.
We do have some students and staff that are health compromised, and we don't want to do an undue hardship on them having to come back, but still providing access. So I guess we are going to have to figure something out for those folks.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
I see that Lynn Davison is ready to comment now. Lynn, you have the floor.
And what is that plan? What is the plan for the students whose families feel that they need to stay home? And you're saying you don't have an online and on-campus plan. Where will those students go?
At this point, we do not have a plan for both simultaneously. I believe that we sent information out that those students might need to go back to their home districts with supports.
I have a really big concern about that. First of all, it's LRE is an IEP team decision, not an individual decision. And that would have to be dealt with as a team. And yes, we do place the students on the campuses for the access to ASL, but we also send them to the campuses because they have deaf and hard of hearing teachers who understand the language issues, who understand how to accommodate and modify those students. Sending them back to their home districts would put them into a class with anywhere from 25 to 40 kids. with a teacher who's never worked with a deaf or hard of hearing student. There are some districts that have staff, like my district, we have a teacher for the deaf and hard of hearing who can make some of those changes, but I really am concerned about sending them back. We're going to lose them. They have enough challenges in their lives anyway, especially under the circumstances, that I think we really need to consider how we can provide those services.
Thank you. I'm not ignoring you. I'm writing as you're talking.
Yeah, and I've shared my concerns with Annette and with David. It's
okay.
I have a real serious concern with this, and I think we really, if we need to collaborate with other schools for the deaf throughout the country to find out how they're doing this, we have an obligation to those kids. We're here for kids, and we need to find a way to provide those services for those kids.
Thank you. That's a great idea.
Thank you, Lynn. And I see Mike has opened his video. Mike Manley, would you like to make some comments?
Those are very important questions that we certainly need to answer. I think that it's going to be difficult to make these kinds of decisions. That executive order, literally the ink is barely dry. So before those decisions are made, we need to look at the actual text of how those pieces fall out, particularly as they surround in-person opportunities at sites, and what those opportunities need to look like. But I think we need to look at the text of that executive order closely, to look at what kind of flexibilities that might offer as it relates to in-person opportunities and health metrics, and what the flexibility is. I think the text of this new executive order is going to be important, and I don't think we've had anybody in the states had time to delve into the specifics and interpret that part quite yet, but that might change this discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And Mike, this is David. Just to clarify, that executive order, are you referring to what the governor spoke about earlier today? I think about an hour ago.
This is Mike. Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. And I was preparing for this meeting. I wasn't able to see the press conference, so
right.
I'm not sure what we'll need to do once I get a chance to process that. Because if we do need to, make some other decision as a board, we'll need to determine that. Are there other board members that would like to talk about the opening of school? I do not see any, and I do note that Dr. Sims has joined us. So he is now participating in the meeting. Hello, Dr. Sims. Dr. Sims, would you like to comment?
No, just waving hello.
Okay, hello. From my, if seeing no other comments on this one, I would like to comment. I generally agree with Lynn. There are, sending our students back to their local school districts is, can be problematic. There are school districts in the state that have an ability to service them virtually, but I don't know how many school districts. I think the number of school districts that can do that are small. I think we have a concentrated expertise in that area, and we should be able to deploy it in a manner that continues to serve those children. If they're not in school, for some reason, it could be some other medical condition, and that's too much risk for them to personally take, or for their parents to take. or there could be a delay. If there is a delay of school, past mid-August, they're going to need to be able to be served in some manner. So I would also like to see some alternatives proposed for that, as opposed to having those students go back to their home districts. Okay. Those were all of my notes for that. And again, I think we'll, from whatever the governor said at 3, which again, I don't know what he said, but once we process that, we'll act accordingly. Okay, seeing no other comments, we are going to move to the next item, item 1.06, information and discussion item, superintendent's report. Superintendent Reichman, you now have the floor.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Yep, okay. So, welcome to our July 23rd board meeting. We say hello to President Nigro, to members of the board, to the Assistant Superintendent Rex, and to those of you of the ASDB community. If you recall the last board meeting on May 7th, that was our first ever online virtual board meeting. And during that meeting, the Assistant Superintendent Rex and I, the two of us, shared with you that when Governor Ducey abruptly closed all of our schools, that we took 2 weeks to transition to online delivery of educational opportunities. With our itinerant services, we provided online supports to our students in the state of Arizona. And for our youngest children, age 3 to 5, our early intervention teacher immediately transferred to providing online support to parents. It was during that board meeting, I also just briefly mentioned that we had paused the production of Braille material for 8 school days. And the reason we did that was because then we didn't have as much information about the virus and how it spread. But we wanted to make sure that we could produce Braille in a safe manner. After 8 days, we had been able to figure out how to change our processes for our Braillists to produce Braille materials safely. And we went back to the actual production of Braille materials. Those materials were sent out, mailed out to both our site-based students and to our cooperative students. They continued to get Braille materials until the end of the school year. So, May 7th, if you recall, we still had about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks left of school. We were wrapping up school at that time. For our seniors, May 2020 was nothing like we had ever seen before. It was very different. We obviously couldn't do the senior prom, the senior trips, and most importantly, we couldn't do the senior graduation ceremony that allowed families and friends to come together and celebrate the seniors' accomplishments. So what did we do with that? Well, instead, our two principals, Principal Creasy on the Tucson campus and Principal Courtney Fritz on the Phoenix campus, decided they wanted to do something. So they, with their dedicated teachers, professional staff, with the digital media team, they shot and created graduation videos. I sent you, board members, the links to those videos. I hope you took the time to watch through each one of them. Those videos was our way of celebrating the seniors and their accomplishments. So after we finish with graduation, our teachers and professional staff were able to take a well-earned respite this summer. However, the ASDB leadership team, we were only able to take a few deep breaths and then start planning for the fall. The primary question we asked ourselves during the planning process was, how can we, during this time of the COVID pandemic, best adhere to ASDB vision and mission? The vision and mission says that we will protect the safety and well-being of our students, and that we will provide the highest quality education and supports. So how do we do that? So our planning process had 3 components. The first component is the routine annual planning for the next school year. The second component was incorporating the planning for COVID-19. And then the third component, which we've just started, is to look at equity and diversity and inclusion subjects here at ASDB. So let me start with the first component, the regular annual planning that occurs. That includes, for example, assigning teachers to specific classes or specific courses, assigning teachers to the classroom, registering new students, re-registering current students, and so on. I do want to mention that one piece of this planning was looking at, instead of doing a 5-day school week, we would do a 4-day school week. And the purpose of doing that was to allow teachers time to prepare for either in-person instruction or online instruction. The hours of instruction is the same as in 5 days. It's just put into 4 days. We're not losing instructional time, just giving our teachers additional flexibility. ASDB itinerant services, the Assistant Superintendent Rex just mentioned this. Itinerant services have been really focused on working with school districts. Some of you may not know, but some school districts start in mid-July. Now, other school districts don't start until mid-August. So our planning on an annual basis each summer is looking at where the students are, what their needs are, who are our teachers, what's the schedule for the school districts, and then we schedule our teacher to match up with the school district schedules. And I want to remind you that this planning is happening at the same time we are beginning the redesign of our itinerant services. For example, right now we have combined the Eastern Highland Regional Cooperatives with the North Central Regional Cooperative with the Southwest Regional Cooperative. They are now combined into Region 1. With that combination of the three cooperatives, of course, there's a lot of logistical details in figuring out how each area provides services and how to streamline them to make them consistent across the whole area. So lots happening at ASDB. So that's the first piece. The second piece, as you saw with the video, was trying to plan for safety during the COVID pandemic in our schools, but not just our schools, but also with our itinerant services, with our early intervention services. ASDB just completed a risk assessment. This risk assessment is a tool that's used by the Arizona Department of Administration to look at a hierarchy of risk. That risk assessment we provided to all of our supervisors, and they filled out information to determine the risk of exposure for each employee category. And the categories of employees would then be matched up with high risk, medium risk, low risk. For those employees that are in the category of high risk, ASDB is committed to providing PPEs, that personal protective equipment, like surgical mask, gloves, face shield. We will provide those equipment, PPE, to those who are in the high risk category. In the medium to low risk, we will all be responsible for bringing our own face coverings and adhering to social distancing protocols. As you just saw in the video, we will all be following that. So some of the components of safety, again, you saw in the video, is looking at taking temperature checks. We will be checking student temperatures before they get on the bus. We are also asking our staff to do their own daily temperature checks at home before they come to work. And if they're sick, to stay home, don't come to work. That when they come to the campus and or our offices, that they bring the face covering and use them. We will also, as was said in the video, do routine cleaning, sanitizing to make sure that all of their facilities are safe and clean. Oh, and a sidebar here. I want to thank Sherry Collins, the Executive Director of the Arizona Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. They just donated 5,000 clear face masks to ASDB. You saw the interpreter in the video wear one. We are also purchasing 10,000 more additional clear face masks. So as you can see, we have put in a lot of thought and planning into this. One other thing I want to add is we did get some additional funding. We got $84,000 from the CARES Act. With that money, we were able to use to pay for postage and sending out packets to our students last spring. We use it to buy Zoom licensing so all of our teachers could Zoom with their deaf and their blind students. We also use it to purchase Chromebooks, I think 98 Chromebooks and 21 iPads, again, to distribute to teachers so that they could provide educational opportunities from their homes online remotely. The third consideration is, as you know, last May, the Minneapolis police officers killed a Black man, George Floyd, which sparked protests all over the country. And here at ASDB, I got a number of emails from teachers and staff asking that ASDB form a diversity and inclusion committee. We are just starting that process, but I want to mention that we know that our students, and I think some of our staff as well, do become victims of racism and discrimination. And that for ASDB as an agency, we need to be able to address racism and discrimination when they occur for our students and our staff, especially because we have students and staff who are also deaf and hard of hearing, deaf, blind, and visually impaired. The goal of the committee will be to discuss how we can address racism and discrimination in the agency, and how can we fully embrace and celebrate the real unique blend of cultures, languages, and communities that we have within the ASDB community. And it ain't over yet. As you know, things change every day. At the end of June, Governor Ducey announced a postponement of in-person school to mid-August. That postponement of 2 weeks has had multiple impacts around the agency. Most of our teachers have what we call spread pay, and it's based on their school calendar. The school calendar has just changed. So for many of our 10-month staff, there will be a gap, a period of time that they will not be getting a paycheck. We are continuing to work on this to figure out how we can keep everyone employed and productive here at ASDB. So today, Governor Ducey just announced the use of benchmarks that will be published, I think, August 7th. So we will need to look forward to that to help us with our decision making. But whatever happens, I think we are committed to starting school on August 18th, whether it is in person or online. Obviously, from the board's discussion just now, there are some questions that we still need to be talking about and giving answers and solutions to. I think I've gone on long enough. I have more that I can say, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap up with that. I'm truly proud of all the work of our ASDB leadership team, of our teachers, of our staff. We are here because we genuinely care about our students. Every day we are creating, we are innovating, we are collaborating, we are striving to give the best education possible to our students. I continue to be very honored to work with and to serve the ASDB community. So thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Reichman. And we'll follow the same procedure for being recognized. I see Lynn's video is open. So Lynn, you have the floor.
I do have a question. I, like you, David, was unable to hear Governor Ducey, but I did get a news pop-up that he did not give a date to resume in-person schooling, but said, outlined the children need to have 180 days of instruction in school. Will the 4-day school week fit that obligation?
Yes, we double checked on that. What we have to do is provide equivalent hours, number of hours, and instruction, so that we are allowed to switch over to 4 days. If you notice, he said 180 days or equivalent to 180 days. What we will be doing is that equivalent to 180 days. Just putting those hours, those minutes and time into the 4 days. And I think Mike Manley can speak to that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I see Shelley has a question. Also, Mike. I think Shelley was first, so I'm going to go with Shelley. Shelley, you have the floor.
Great, thank you. Shelley Herbold speaking. I have a question regarding the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Have you determined who will lead that committee and who that leader will be? And then also, will you provide a sensitivity training for all of the staff, including students as well? Some type of training or instruction rather than just talking about it. I'm wondering if you're going to put that into action in some way.
You don't have enough information right now to take action. The one thing that I want to do is to really think this through, to be mindful about how we do this. I have seen other situations where an equity office would be established, and then the equity office would be put into a corner, and then other employees of color who may not be performing in the way that they should, then be transferred into the equity office, which is the exact opposite of the intent here. I've also have heard and read stories about training being provided and staff going to training because they have to, not because they bought into it, but because it's required. The question I have is, how can we have this discussion, this awareness, this buy-in, which is I'm talking about embracing and celebrating from all of us? How do we spread that across the agency, and how do we infuse it into everything that we do, from staff interaction to our curriculum choices, that it becomes a part of our everyday attitudes and behaviors. I haven't taken the time to do research to see what's happening elsewhere, what's best practice. I am hoping that by forming the committee, that some of them will take the time to do that kind of research, and then to inform the leadership team on how we can implement best practice so that we achieve the goal that's intended here.
Okay, great. And I do hope to hear more reports at the next meeting about that.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. Mike Manley, I saw your video was on before. Would you like the floor?
Oh, no, I appreciate the shout out from the superintendent, but it's very similar. We just need to digest that new executive order before any decisions are made, to make sure that we're looking at all aspects of the fine language that we need to dive into.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. I was just provided with the order now, and I've just been taking a quick look at it. But yeah, there's a lot here we need to process. Are there other comments from other board members? I don't see any. I have just a couple of questions. Superintendent Reichman, if there is, and I know this was the plan, but I'd like to, that was circulated a month or two ago, but walk me through what happens when we do go back in person and there is a diagnosis of COVID amongst either the staff or the students. Can you walk me through what the response is there?
We have a beginnings of a framework of a plan to do contact tracing for our staff. We have not yet really looked at how we're going to do that with our students, but yes, that's very much on our minds in our discussions at this point in time. We already had to do contact tracing twice in the last month. So we are learning how to do that, what needs to be done when there is a suspected infected person that has interacted with others on our 2 campuses.
Okay. If we do find that students has been exposed, even maybe not even at school, maybe at home or through some other contact, and we do those contact tracing, we identify a cohort of students who have been potentially been exposed. Will those students have to go onto an online learning platform for a period of time, or will some other action be taken with respect to those students once we identify that cohort? And I see Dr. Rex raising her hand as well.
Mostly
I will defer to her.
And it's actually part of a plan that Kelly and Courtney could probably elaborate upon a little bit better. But yes, that is why we're bringing our teachers back right now to prepare for remote. We know that there may be waves where we have to close our school for a couple weeks. So our teachers will have what they need to go right into remote. They'll have access to the technology, they will have the training. And so that's why we need our teachers here now to prepare to open up schools safely when we can. But we have a plan for remote, and we can jump back and forth. It should be able to toggle pretty well. I don't know if Kelly or Courtney want to add to that, but we do have a plan in my section. And then we also have updates, and Anita Payette in HR helps support us with the contact tracing part, if that helps.
That ability to toggle sounds great. And just to be clear, are we talking about the ability to change, let's say, one classroom, or are we saying the whole school or the whole campus if we're talking about the on-site programs?
I think it would depend on doing there's Courtney, she can probably elaborate, because we've gone through about 50 different scenarios, and I know we're not close, but we try to think, but what about? So Courtney, you can step in.
Yeah, I can elaborate a little bit. Our goal is really to mimic as much as what would be happening and occurring in the classroom versus a remote and digital platform. And so when the teachers come back, all teachers, regardless of grade level, regardless of content, even our related service providers who provide direct IEP services, will create a Google Classroom. And within that Google Classroom, all of the instructional materials, the direct instruction, visual aids and support will be put into the Google Classroom. And so depending on the timeline, of course, ideally, it would be to have students with us first to be able to walk them through that, to show them what it would look like, to go through the platform. They can start using it in person with the teachers, with staff right there physically to support them. But if that's not the case, because we have to start online, then all of that would still be the same. So we're really, our goal is not to go the avenue of some of the, for lack of a better word, the canned online programs where the curriculum is already set up and the teacher is a facilitator. We really want to specialize, use our specialty to create an environment that would be remote, but that would mirror much of what the students are getting in person. So I hope that helps to clarify and answer the question. So it wouldn't just be for one class, it would be for all classes, it would be across campus, all grade levels, all services.
Okay, thank you. I see Ms. Creasy has her video open. Would you like to comment as well?
I think what Courtney highlighted is exactly what we've talked about. Also, to speak to you, if we had a case on campus with students, one of the benefits is that we're really small and contact tracing is a little easier. The downside is we're really small, and probably that student may have come in contact with several other groups on campus from the bus ride. We have kids from preschool through 12th grade on a bus. Our plan would be to look at who that child came in contact with, either close that classroom for 2 weeks or potentially have to close down the school for 2 weeks, depending on who they came in contact with. But at that point, like Courtney said, we're prepared to do either online or in person.
Okay, so what I'm hearing then is that if there is a diagnosis on campus, we have the ability to do either a partial shutdown or full shutdown and migrate the existing classwork onto an online platform, for example.
Yes, sir.
In terms of the dorms, and I know that we don't have that many students in the dorms, but if there is a case of the students in the dorms, are they going to be cared for in the dorms, or are they going to be safely transported to home?
They would be safely transported to home. Our dorms will essentially become their own families, so that each dorm will stay within that dorm building once they come home from school, so that we won't have mixing of dorms. students. So if we did have a case in the dorm, we're only looking to potentially have to shut down that dorm. But that student would be sent home to recover and then would come back once they're ready to go. So we are prepared for that too. We've got a great system in place, safety procedures in the dorm. Live to give credit to Sarah Allen and her team for really thinking that through. So we're ready for what we can be at this point.
Okay, so no Sentinel zone this year?
No Sentinel zone this year, unfortunately.
Sure.
Each dorm will have an opportunity to go to the Sentinel zone once a week, but not as a whole dorm group this year.
Okay, that's unfortunate. In terms of the precautions that we have on campus at dorms or otherwise, do we have any access to HEPA filters in certain areas where we might have the ability to run a HEPA filter in, let's say, the nurse's office or something like that?
I'm going to turn that over to Albert. Albert would better be able to answer that question.
So this is Albert. That's a good question. Unfortunately, the ACE units that we have in play do not accept the size of a HEPA filter, a true HEPA filter. We use a MERV 8, which is standard for those units.
Okay, are there any portable devices that you may have?
There are, but they're about a 12-week lead time at this time.
Okay, yeah, I know these types of things are hard to procure at this point.
Yes, sir.
From my other questions are related to devices. Superintendent Reichman, I know that when we met in May, there were the kind of the unreachable children, right? And we talked a lot about how are we going to get to them? What are the obstacles that we face to reach them with an online platform? Part of that is lack of devices, and it looks like we've used some of the CARES Act funding to purchase devices to supply to some of those children. Can you talk about how we're proceeding to make sure that students that don't have devices can get them and can get access to an online platform if we need to go to online?
So one big challenge is the area. Oh, hold on. She's checking her.
Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one big challenge, as you all know, is the digital divide. And that's true of our students as well. So we can give out devices. We have done that to most of our students. What we've not done is address the internet connectivity. As you know, some of our students don't have access to the internet. We don't have a decision yet, maybe the best way to describe that. There's a lot of internal discussion about how do we do that? Do we purchase and provide hotspots? Do we tell students to go to the local school building and use their Wi-Fi, go to the library and use their Wi-Fi? We're not sure yet, but that is definitely on our mind, and we're having those conversations. We've not yet made a decision as to how we're going to address that particular issue.
Okay. Great. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from the board members? Okay, it doesn't seem like there are. Thank you, Superintendent Reichman, for that report. I am sure we will all review the executive order and see if we need to make some more changes to these plans. But we can move on to the next agenda item, 2.01, The action item approval of a consent agenda consistent with board policies to include items 3.01, 5.01, 5.02, 7.02, and 7.03. At this time, I'd like to ask if there are any board members that would like to exclude one of these items from the consent agenda. And seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. I see Lynn and recognize Lynn.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I see Mike Manley.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please open your video and make an indication of assent. So I'm seeing Mike Gordon saying yes, Mike Manley, yes, Lynn, yes, Dr. Sims, yes, and Shelley, yes. All opposed?
Dean, yes.
Oh, Dean, yes. There we go. Dean, you are my second place there. Sorry about that. I have this on two devices so I can better see everyone, but excellent. So, and all opposed? Seeing none, then the consent agenda has passed. And we can move to 3.02 action item, adoption of agreement template on policies agreed to by ASDB and LEAs for ASDB's campus-based students. Superintendent Reichman.
Yes, you may recall a while back a discussion about our conversations with the Arizona Department of Education, clarifying roles and responsibilities for ASDB as a state institution, a state agency, and roles and responsibilities for a local education agency or a district of residence. We continued those conversations between ASDB and ADE, and this document is a compilation of those conversations. What is ASDB responsible for, and what is the local education agency or the district of residence responsible for when they refer a student to our site-based schools. Our plan is to send this template to those school districts and ask them to review and then to sign off with us, so that we would have this document between us and the district of residence that clarifies what we will do and what they will do. If you've taken some time to read it, you see it includes assessment, it includes instruction, it includes graduation requirements, it includes transportation, and a number of other topics. So I just wanted to present it to you, the board, so that you can see this is the result of the discussions that we've had with ADE, and to get your approval on this template that we want to be sending out to school districts for signatures.
Thank you, Superintendent Reichman. Are there any questions from board members about the agreement or its contents? And I don't see any right now. So to clarify, Superintendent Reichman, I think what you're asking us to do is to approve this template or something substantially similar so that you can enter into this with LEAs. If there's a more significant change in this, then perhaps you'd need to come back to us. But the idea is that we would approve this template and substantially similar agreements.
Yeah, the template is intended for all districts of residents that send students to us, to our site-based schools. If there are significant changes, we will come back to you. Yes.
Okay. Great, and that's similar to the other IGAs that we approve from time to time.
Yes.
So I guess at this point, if there are no other comments about it, I'd entertain a motion related to this. And I see Mike has opened his video. Mike?
I'd actually like to recuse myself from this action.
Sure. Thank you. That's noted. And so seeing none, I would, I see Shelley is raising her hand. Shelley, you have the floor.
I do have a question. Do we have a quorum if he's not able to vote?
I believe since Dr. Sims joined that we do, but we can count again. We have Dean, you, Lynn, and Mike Gordon. Yeah, so we do have 5. So that it is, we would have a quorum to act, pending the vote. So what I would like to do then is I'll make the motion that I move that we accept or approve the request to allow the superintendent to enter into this template agreement with LEAs as she deems fit. Is there a second? I see Mike Gordon seconding by waving. So now we'll take a vote. All of those in favor, please say yes or make another indication. So I see myself, Mike Gordon, Lynn Davison, Dean Howard, Mark Sims, and Shelley Herbold. If there are any nays, and there can't be, and then Mike Manley has recused himself, so the motion carries. So moving on to item 4.01, the information item finance report from Sheena Cooper. Ms. Cooper, you now have the floor.
Good afternoon, Board President Nigro, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Rex, members of the board and the ASDB community. Sheena Cooper, Executive Director of Business Services. Business Services has been working to close out the 2020 fiscal year, which includes continuing to pay our vendor invoices, getting PowerSchool, our student information system, rolled over into the school year, and also working on developing the budget for 2021. Before I begin to discuss the financial reports, which are as of June 30, 2020 and 2019, I wanted to give you an update on the development of the agency's 2021 budget. Just last week, the approved agency budget was published by the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, which shows an increase in our appropriated funding from the baseline report published back in January. It did increase by about $1.1 million. It wasn't extra money that we got to cover any additional needs other than to cover the extra pay that the agency staff will receive, what we know as the 27th pay. The total approved funding for 2021 to ASDB now is $58.4 million. Within that, our appropriated funds totals $37.3 million instead of what was originally proposed of $36.3, and our non-appropriated funds stay the same at $21.1 million. Included in the budget and if approved today, are the salary increases for teachers ranging from 7.5 to 9.5%, and salary increases for all other staff for a cost of living adjustment of 1.5%. These salary increases total about $2 million. As Superintendent Reichman already mentioned, ASDB did receive $84,000 from the CARES Act funding that was allocated to ADE. Allocated to ADE. In addition to the CARES Act funding, we did also receive $1 million in additional funding to purchase vehicles for the agency. We are working on finalizing the department non-personnel budgets and expect to have those completed and distributed within the next week or two. Based on meetings that I have participated in over the last couple of months and several conversations with other chief financial officers, key stakeholders of school districts and agencies across the state, there still continues to be a lot of uncertainties as it relates to the economy and our finances. JLBC recently just reduced or indicated that they've reduced their projected shortfall in the state general fund revenues for 2020. If you recall, they originally projected a $638 million deficit. Now it's been updated to $190 million. The JLBC and OSPB staff have indicated, as I mentioned, there are still a lot of questions and concerns about the revenue shortfall for the state for 2021. And while we continue to wait and get answers on what we don't know related to our finances, we will continue to focus on ensuring that the budget adequately funds our operational needs, as well as meeting the needs to include developing effective mitigation strategies and exploring new opportunities. As it relates to the financial reports for the month end June 30, 2020, as normal, I provided for comparative purposes reports that also show where we were as of June 30, 2019. Our most recent Finance Committee meeting was held on July 16th with board members Manley and Gordon and Superintendent Reichman, and the meeting minutes have been included with today's consent agenda items. And in summary, we reviewed and discussed the budgetary and fiscal year budget to actual comparison reports, the grant revenue and expenditure reports, and we also reviewed student enrollment as of July 1, 2020 in comparison to July 1, 2019. As referenced on page 1, as of July 1, 2020, we did have 518 roughly filled full-time equivalents and 102 vacant positions. As of July 1, 2020, we had 2,244 students, whereas last year we had 2,117, so roughly a difference of 127 students. On the bottom of page 1 and on page 2 of the report, you will see the increase in our students comparing both school years is within our early learning program. Within our birth to age 3 children, we have 511 compared to 447 last year. And our preschool students have increased from 240 to 263 this year. Additionally, our regional cooperatives have increased. And these increases, however, are offset by a decline in our site-based school enrollment on the Tucson campus. You'll also notice that our vouchered students as of July 1, 2020 is 1102 compared to 1071 last year. And our fee-for-service students as of July 1, 2020 is 1142 compared to last year's 1046. Based on the financial summary comparing current year to prior year data, you will notice that our collected revenues have increased by $1.4 million. So we've ended roughly at $33.7 million compared to last year's $32.3 million. The increase is primarily due to our vouchers, both with our site-based enrollment as well as our regional cooperatives. We also did have a 5% voucher rate increase from 2019 to 2020, in addition to the 31 students, mainly within our preschool students. Our Expenditures have decreased, and that's mainly due to the decline in other operating expenses and equipment. So our expenditures have decreased from last year to this year by $1.2 million. Some of it does relate to the school closures for the last 3 to 4 months. And you'll also notice on page 9, the budget status report. So far, we are showing a surplus of right at about $2.2 million when you compare actual revenues of $56.5 million to actual expenditures of $54.4. So I've talked about what our collected revenues are, but I also mentioned previously our general fund appropriations is what we expend, and that's also included in our revenue numbers as well. You'll also notice, since it is at the end of the quarter, I've provided preliminary quarterly financial statements, which will include our balance sheet, income statement, as well as our statement of cash flows. And what you'll notice also, again, our total cash balance has increased by $3.3 million when you look at last year's June 30 balance compared to this year's June 30 balance. Our cash balance as of June 30 is $11.6 million. Compared to last year, it was $8.3 million. That really concludes my report today. If there are no questions, that's all of the information that I have as it pertains to the fiscal data for the agency.
Thank you so much. Are there any comments from board members about the reports? And seeing none, thank you very much. We all appreciate it. Moving on, we are at 5.03. Action item, approval of proposed salary increases for fiscal year 2020-2021 pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A1. The board may vote to go into executive session for discussion of proposed salary increases. Superintendent Reichman.
Yes, if you recall, I believe it was 3 years ago, 2018. Can you hear me? No, we cannot hear you.
Okay. If you recall, was it 3 years ago, 2018, we had the Red for Ad movement. And at that time, Governor Ducey committed to 20% increases for teachers over a 3-year period of time. So we provided, because our vouchers increased, we provided increases 2 years ago. We provided increases last year. We're now in our 3rd year, and the remaining portion of the increase, which then will total to 20%, is, as Shana just mentioned, that 7.5% for all teachers increase. And then some of those are able to get an additional 2% step increase. So this completes our commitment to teachers. We did get an increase in the vouchers themselves, as Gina Cooper just mentioned. So that's what's happening. For the rest of the staff, we're providing a 1.5% increase. The total of the 2 increases is right around $2 million. So we're asking you, the board, to approve that.
Thank you, Superintendent Reichman. Are there any board members that have questions or comments about this? I don't see any. Superintendent Reichman, I know a year or two ago, we talked about there's an ongoing process to make sure that we're paying other staff other than teachers competitively. I think looking at a section of those groups every kind of on a 3-year rotating basis. I want to confirm that that process is still ongoing.
Yes, we continue to do market surveys, market analysis for different employee categories. Even each time we post a new position, we again do market analysis to make sure that we're offering competitive wages. Yes, that's ongoing.
Okay. Great. Are there other board members that have any questions? If not, we entertain a motion to approve the proposed salary increases. I see Lynn Lynn, you have the floor.
I move that we approve the proposed salary increases for 2021.
Okay, and I see Shelley has started her video.
Second.
And she seconds. All those in favor, please start your video and make your a gesture. So I see Mike Gordon is saying yes, Dean Howard is saying yes, Mike Manley is saying yes, Lynn Davidson is saying yes, Dr. Sims is saying yes, and Shelley is saying yes. All opposed? No, seeing none, then that has passed. We can go to item 701, information item, introduction and possible discussion of policies, DKA, IHB, IHBD, JFABD, JFBA, and JR. Maria Murphy. Ms. Murphy, if you can start your video.
It's telling me I can't start it because the host has stopped it.
Okay.
Let's try again.
We can hear you. So
okay. Wonderful.
Great. You can start.
There we go.
You get that fixed.
There.
All right. Here we go.
Okay.
Right,
Good afternoon, Board President Nigro, members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Rex. You have before you the red lines of the policies that we are proposing for editing or deletion. We did go ahead and post the policies to the public for comment. We did not receive any comments from the public. At this time, I'd like to make myself available for any questions if there are any.
Again, thank you. This is the first read. So if there are any questions or comments from the board members, we can address them, and these will come up for a second read next time. Seeing none, I don't have any comments either. Ms. Murphy, thank you. Oh, I see Shelley. Shelley has started her video, so let's. I will recognize Shelley.
Yes, this is Shelley Herbold speaking. I did look at the policy and I'm wondering why we're changing from a 10-day to a 7-day pay as far as paying employees after their services are discharged or they're dismissed. Why is that changing?
Yes, Board Member Herbold, that's a very good question. And the reason why is because ASDB is a state agency and state agencies are required to comply with those ADOA personnel rules, and ADOA personnel rules require 7 days, which is why we are doing that to make it consistent with those rules.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. Are there other questions or comments? Then it looks like we can move on. Thank you, Ms. Murphy.
Thank you.
We're going on to item 7.04, action item, approval of strategic plan development work session dates for 2020, Superintendent Reichman. And before I turn over to you, Superintendent Reichman, I know our plan at the beginning of the year and even at the end of last year was to have a series of strategic planning meetings to talk about various kind of high-level matters at the agency. We were going to start those in the spring. That got delayed because of COVID. We had to cancel 2 of those sessions. I know here we're looking, now that we have a better idea of our response to COVID in the last 4 months. I know that we're looking to replace those 2 on the calendar later this year, and hopefully we can get that same amount of work done in that compressed period of time. So I thank the board members for their willingness to rearrange schedules due to COVID. But Superintendent Reichman, if you have anything to add to that or the proposed dates.
Just want to mention that when you look at the schedule, just notice that we have August 13th as the first strategic planning meeting. And then we go to the end of September, I think September 26th, for the second planning meeting. That means we only have 1 week between the 26th of September to October 1st. That's our third planning meeting. October 1st was never taken off the schedule. That was approved by the board. So just when you look at that, just make note of that in your schedules.
Thank you, Superintendent Reichman. I know, that's a little bit more compressed than we had originally would have liked, but in terms of availability, it looked like that September 24th date had some decent availability. I see Shelley has opened her video, so Shelley, if you'd like to comment, the floor is yours.
Yes, I do have a question. As far as the September 23rd, the steering committee meeting, my concern is getting everyone together in one big room. I don't think that we can have social distancing in that environment. So can you explain what the plan is for that?
Yes, you're right. We can't bring together 50, 60 people into one room. We just heard Governor Ducey say we can't have large gatherings. So we are in discussion about what to do with the steering committee. We may do it online. I don't know how we do 50, 60 people online. It's possible. I'm on the West Ed Board of Directors and they had 60, 70 people on the Zoom and they conduct board business with that many people. So this is something that we're talking about internally at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Superintendent Reichman, I think for some of these, we're not sure, for the August 13th meeting, for example, I think it's unclear at this time whether that'll be in person or via Zoom, correct? So I think for the location of these, at least for the August 13th one, it just remains to be seen at this point, whether we're going to be doing it virtually or doing it, in person as originally planned. Okay. Are there other board members that would like to comment on the dates or the times here? And I don't see any. So if we could have a motion to approve these dates. Again, we're approving the dates only, not necessarily the form of the meeting, electronic or in person. I see Mike Gordon has started his video. Mike, I think you're still on mute if you're.
I am, I'm sorry.
Okay, there we go.
I just wanted to follow up on what Annette said about having a large participant Zoom meeting. The National Federation of the Blind had their national convention last week, completely virtual. And at some points, as many as 7,000 people participated. And even in some of the breakouts, there were hundreds of people, and it worked really, really well. So I think as far as the numbers to be virtually connected and really be actively involved, I think that's it's already proven that that will work. So as far as your planning, just take that into account.
Thanks, Mike. And I attended the National Organization for People with Albinism conference a few weeks ago, which was virtual this year. They do it every other year, and I think it was a similar experience there. There were hundreds of participants, and they were able to do it effectively, via a virtual platform. I see that Mike Manley has started his video. Mike, you have the floor.
Sorry, this is Mike. I just had a quick question. Can you share the name of the platform that was able to sustain more than 500 folks? Mike Gordon, or?
That was just Zoom.
It was Zoom. Okay.
Yeah.
Looking for something for 700 people.
Yeah, particularly when all the participants come up on a grid, so okay. It gives everybody access.
So it wasn't capped. Got it.
Yeah, Mike, this is David. Parts of the NOAA conference were on Zoom, but parts were on a different platform, and I forget the name of it. It was something I hadn't heard of before, but I can find it and send it to you.
Thank you.
You know, Mike, some of it was YouTube also.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so will we have a motion to approve these dates? I see Mike Manley has started his video. Are you moving to accept those dates as proposed?
Yes. Second.
Okay. Do we have a second? I see Mike Gordon seconding. So all in favor of the dates set forth in the item 7.04, please indicate that. I see myself, Mike Gordon, Lynn Davison, Dean Howard, Mike Manley, Shelley Herbold. All indicating yes. All opposed? Okay, none opposed. I note that I didn't see Dr. Sims vote yes. Now he's voting yes. So we have a yes on that. So excellent. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Section 8.01. The call to the public on non-agendized items.
President Nigro?
Yes.
Shelley had a comment.
Oh, sure.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to let you know that I will not be here on August 13th and September 10th.
Okay.
I'm going to be out on medical leave.
Okay.
So I'll be in recovery during that time, so I won't be available.
Oh, okay. Well, we wish you a speedy recovery. So,
thank
you. Yeah, I think we all do. We're all. Thank you. Moving on to 8.01, call to the public on non-agendized items. We did not have any public comments received at the email address for this agenda item, so there's nothing to read here. For section 8.02, discussion item, agenda items for the next regular board meeting scheduled for September 10th, 2020. I'd open it up to any proposals for additions to the agenda for that meeting. I will note in terms of the format of that meeting, I think we still are not sure whether or not that'll be in person as originally scheduled, or if that will be via Zoom or another electronic platform. We'll make that decision as as we get closer to the date and as we get more information. But if there are any any topics that would like to be added for discussion? Dr. Sims, I see you're, oh, no, okay. Let's see, the board members. Okay, great. I don't see any board members. I know, at least for me, I know that we'd like to see some update on the Braille curriculum. I know that got a little bit delayed because of COVID. I do know that some of those materials have been ordered and some have been received, although certain materials have been delayed due to COVID. But I'd like to, it may not necessarily be its own agenda item, but I at least want to make sure that we're still moving ahead on that. But you know, other than that, I don't have anything specific. Okay, if seeing no other comments, we'll move on to section 9.01, adjournment. I see Lynn opening her video. Lynn, would you like to move to adjourn?
Yes, I would. I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. And I see Shelley seconding. All in favor? And I see Dean saying yes, Mike Manley saying yes, Lynn saying yes, Dr. Sims saying yes, Shelley saying yes, and Mike Gordon saying yes. So we are going to adjourn again. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. It's a very, you know, there are a lot of difficult decisions that are being made at the agency now, and I appreciate the board's, you know, support and time into this. Again, this is a very tough time, and the agency really needs our leadership on this. So thank you very much. And again, thank you to Media Technologies for facilitating the meeting. I think everything went really well. And have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.